Hello and welcome everyone to the Hispanic Patriot podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nicholas Razzo, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron Hugo Chavez Rey. Give it up for the Hispanic Patriots.
Hola amigos y todos los que están entiendo. I'm kidding, folks. No, hello and welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We are in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, which we are all proud to celebrate. And we want to just share a little bit about that so you know what it is about. Unlike some other months that are out there, we basically celebrate the culture. So let's start off with a quick short video about what Hispanic Heritage Month is all about.
Somos, it's a uniting word, and it means we are, and we are proud to be a part of this community.
All across the Bay Area, Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations are well underway, but it's looked different over the years.
It started in '68, it was a week long, but I think it really has evolved.
President Lyndon Johnson started Hispanic Heritage Week back in 1968. Come 1988, President Ronald Reagan expanded it to 30 days.
The traditional Hispanic Heritage Month is September 15th through October 15th.
Maribel Garrett, who was born and raised in Puerto Rico, is now the Hispanic liaison for the city of Tampa.
Our mayors celebrated a little bit longer. You know, they say that September, October, and November are to celebrate Hispanic heritage, which is amazing because it truly shows the importance that now Mayor Castor feels the Hispanic community has.
The month is also an opportunity to illustrate our rich contributions and the continued impact of our diverse roots.
For many, many years, you know, that the Hispanic community was perhaps seen as less than. And I think as a community, we are working to change that. We want to really make an effort to recognize those individuals who are doing something for our community, who are going above and beyond to have an impact all throughout.
So we are not less than, we are more of.
Yes. Well, look at the demographics. I think that pans that out pretty well. But guys, you know, we wanted to thank you all for being with us in Hispanic Heritage Month. It's so important to us because, we often, the Democrats like to talk about systemic racism. And of course, we Republicans, we know that doesn't really exist in the way they say it does. But I'd say this, if it really does, it was Democrats who created it, because I've never been made to feel unwelcome in Republican spaces as a Hispanic person with my values. I felt that very unwelcome in many Democrat spaces, and especially for the anti-religious, anti-family aspect. So we really want to remember, guys, that Hispanic conservatism is Hispanic culture, because our culture is very family, faith, and food-oriented, and you can't have food with nothing but GMO crops.
Exactly. And keep in mind that, you know, Hispanic Heritage Month is about the culture, but we who have been here and who came here for a new beginning understand the importance of assimilation. And while we celebrate our heritage, it does not mean that we do not celebrate and understand the meaning of being an American. I'm a proud American. That was my mom's thing, that when we came here, that told me, she says, we came here to be Americans, and while we may have a Hispanic heritage, we are proud to be Americans. So that's what Hispanic heritage is all about. And in keeping with Hispanic heritage, I wanted to share a little something humorous to show that Hispanics have a sense of humor. And we are so proud of our president because he has a huge sense of humor.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
President Trump is the champion troll. As always.
It's called We Do a Little Trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
Yeah.
No, that honestly, guys, I'm gonna be straight up about this. This is my favorite meme of the second term. Like, this is my favorite meme of the year. Like, I hope this never goes away. I hope we put sombreros and mustaches on literally every Democrat forever, because apparently they hate it and think it's racist when we do it to each other on our online Christmas cards every year for the last like 15 years of the internet, us Hispanics.
Now you have another video, don't you? Did you find that one?
I do in fact, actually. And you
Take a look at that one now.
Well, Hakeem Jeffries was really upset about this happening, is what it is. So I think our president is so generous. He hired someone. You'll see that our president did something to try to cheer up Hakeem Jeffries.
Video, and we're going to continue to make clear, bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
See, who could be unhappy with that?
I'm just going to go right ahead and say.
Little treat for all my boys back home, for what it's worth. But no, I want this to never go away. I want this to literally never go away, and I want it to bother them forever. Because, Hugo, have you seen the Democrats lose their minds screaming about how evil and racist this is?
They're really good at trolling Republicans, but when the shoe's on the other foot, boy, they sure are butthurt. It just shows that the left has no sense of humor. They claim that they have these comedians who are really not comedians.
Who are terrible at their jobs, as it turns out.
And they cry when someone like Jimmy Kimmel gets booted off the air because he stinks and is losing Disney like $40 million a year. And what do they do?
You're not going to keep your job under those circumstances.
They turn around and try to blame President Trump for getting him kicked off the air when, in fact, he was already on his way out before he made that stupid statement about Charlie Kirk.
Well, Hugo, I'm actually really glad that you brought up Charlie Kirk, because we kind of have to bring it back down a little bit, because I just made in my head, I just realized an interesting observation, that the left seems more upset to be made to look like Hispanics than how they were upset over when they killed Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I can't help but notice that. I really can't help but notice that they seem more upset about this than they did about that. And that, I think, is something we shouldn't forget.
And I hope Latinos everywhere notice how Hakeem Jeffries is unabashedly hateful about being portrayed as a Hispanic in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month.
Can you believe that? These racist Democrats, man. They start the Mexican-American War, and now this. Will it ever end, Hugo? Will the persecution ever end?
I don't know. But I thought that was hilarious.
That was fantastic.
Now, let's talk a little bit about this government shutdown thing, because this is what this was all about. These, how should I portray them? These clowns that came out of the White House.
Those, I think you called them.
To speak in front of the cameras. And basically try to portray their move to basically extort the Trump administration and Speaker Johnson into basically giving back some of what was passed in the Big Beautiful Bill. And part of this, and this is what people need to understand, okay? This shutdown is 100% the fault of Democrats. So don't let these sound bites and these left-wing news media people try to convince you otherwise, because here's the dirty little secret. Yes, Republicans have the majority in the House and the Senate. However, in the Senate, it takes 60 votes to pass a budget resolution.
Yeah, as it
Okay.
turns out, it's not a simple majority like
So
people
we have
assume.
53 minus 2 rhinos that usually don't vote with us. So we technically have 51, which is a majority, plus the vice president as a tiebreaker vote. And it takes 60. And what did Hakeem Jeffries say? Or no, I'm sorry, what did Schumer say? No, we're not going to give you the 7 or 8 uh, Democrat votes that would take us to 60 to get this resolution passed, even though the past 13 times they've done this under Democrat rule, they've just run right through and had no problem with the continuing resolution. So,
Well, that should be said, actually, is that because I first saw my first government shutdown that I could remember under Obama. And I remember this being the argument again and again and again. Oh, Republicans are in charge. Republicans are in charge. And they always forget that critical little detail. They were never teaching it. They never cared in order to let people know it. And we know why, because they wanted to control the narrative around it. So, folks, I also wanted to share some information from people in the military that I know. Don't be fooled by the rhetoric that Trump is going to let soldiers go unpaid and that our borders are going to be open and all this crazy stuff. This is nonsense. The military will be paid, back pay will happen, things will be solved, and we are not going to let our boys and girls in uniform go punished because of
actually,
this.
not even that. The military and all essential workers will continue to get paid.
Exactly.
The president is not shutting down anything with regards to health care, Medicare, Social Security. All of those people will be getting
Absolutely.
their
We should
checks.
say this president. Do you
But
know
that's
why my generation tends to believe that it's every president that does? It's because Obama, in his first government shutdown, made it hurt. Made it hurt, made sure that people did not get paid who should have gotten paid so that Americans would fear government shutdowns ever since. And it's worked. We need to get away from this fear and destroy it completely. We should not be afraid of government shutdowns if it means keeping our values.
well, the president, in keeping with his values, stepped right up, and after these guys came out and were saying, "Oh, all these people are going to die." That's what the people are
If
going to
you just want
die.
people to die,
Yeah.
shout out to Remy.
And the president issued an executive order that basically said none of these essential things will be hurt. Everybody will continue to get their checks until we get this thing resolved. There are some issues with for example, government workers who are not essential will not be allowed to go to work, and they will not be getting paid. And then you had this threat that up to 100,000 federal workers are going to resign.
Oh no,
president,
what will we ever do without them?
and the president said, "All right, thank you for helping us with Doge."
Yeah,
I,
it's
I
kind of
would be
a,
like I would be
wham
like
bam, thank you
President
ma'am kind
Reagan
of
back in
aspect of
the
it.
'80s when the air traffic controllers decided to stage a walkout, and the president said, "You're walking out? Okay, you're fired." And he replaced every one of them, and that was a huge thing back in the '80s, man. I tell you what, when that happened, it was a bombshell. President Reagan was not messing around, and he did what had to be done. And guess what? We ended up better for it. So
That reminds me of Donald Trump quite a lot, Hugo. I'm sure you, during the Reagan era, I'm sure you think a lot of similarities between Reagan and Trump because I see that here. And here he is, like Reagan, expanding Hispanic culture by either Hispanic Heritage Month or this fantastic new meme. And be
absolutely,
having strength, peace through strength.
it shows that President Trump can have fun while still taking care of business, and that's what I love about him.
That's what the Republican Party's all about.
So fret not, folks. This government shutdown is all of a ruse to try to get you riled up and think that all of you people that need your checks and benefits are not going to get them. It's a lie. You will
No, you'll
get
be
your
just fine.
benefits. All right, we're going to shift gears and go Colorado, full Colorado. We have a good friend of the show, Mr. Jeremy Goodall from El Paso County.
Was always ready to go full Colorado.
He's going to join us to discuss the debacle that took place this past Saturday at the Anschutz Medical Center. So let's bring in Mr. Jeremy Goodall. Jeremy, how are you? Can you hear it? Yep. You're muted. We can't hear you. Is your volume on?
Just be 1 second, folks.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to Jeremy after we get this worked out. But
No problem there.
But this past Saturday, for those of you who are familiar and those of you who are not familiar, we had the opt-out meeting for the state central committee. And I got to tell you, folks, I have been attending these kind of meetings for 40 plus years, and this meeting was the worst orchestrated meeting that I have ever attended as a Republican. The meeting started off with the chair deciding that she was going to lecture the body about not wanting to unify behind their leadership. Well, leaders lead, and people who don't know how to lead basically pontificate, and that's what this chairman did. She spent the better part of an hour basically chastising the body, and then she tried to compare herself to Jesus Christ and Erica Kirk by saying that she forgives us, those of us who have been calling her out for her corruption and incompetence, but she was going to take the high road and forgive us.
Which also kind of is a little insulting, especially to the body, because that would imply in this analogy that you, me, and everybody else in the room who doesn't support her are Tyler Robinson.
Yeah.
If she's Erica Kirk, then that's the implication. That she's comparing herself to somebody who was killed in both of those situations, either somebody who was killed or somebody who had lost somebody. So, again, as an old friend of Charlie Kirk, I was not entirely happy with that at all. Yep. To be honest.
We have our friend back. We almost had him back.
Oh, he's in the green room is what it is.
Are we back on now?
No,
no sound, buddy.
That's what it was. Don't worry. The important thing is that he's in the green room, folks, so we can be able to link up the sound and figure that out.
All right. We'll keep trying to get Jeremy in. In the meantime,
no problem. I'll take care of that, Hugo. Please tell us about what you thought as a person who saw it firsthand.
Well, I mean, you were there too.
Indeed, I
basically, it started off like I said. She had this manifesto, if you will, that she read and spent her and Vice Chair Holtorf basically spent the better part of the first hour just kind of chastising the body and saying that, we can't proceed with people who are going to try to thwart her in her actions at every turn. And the problem with that argument is that the chair is basically doing things corrupt. And she's not following any bylaws. She doesn't know what she's doing. I've never seen a meeting so poorly run by a chair in my life. I mean, she kept turning to the vice chair, to the secretary, to the parliamentarian who wasn't even a parliamentarian, and getting input from people because she didn't know how to handle the meeting. They tried to what they tried to portray is that the problem is with the people who oppose her and not with her and her minions who are trying to basically destroy this party from within. So the thing is, I don't know, people called it a circus, a fiasco. I mean, there's a lot of terms people were using. Some were not even as kind as that. But I tell you what, I liked when Raymond got up to the mic and he said, and he kind of blasted her for the forgiveness comment. And he basically told her in no uncertain terms, it is you, Madam Chair, who should be asking for forgiveness, not the other way around. And so he kind of put her in her place for that. But,
After really, it should be said, an important detail, after really, really, really not wanting to call on him, really not wanting to let him actually speak, because you remember, they were, as soon as Ray got up to the mic, suddenly 3 people on the other side of the aisle got to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that, these are the kind of details, folks, that you really wouldn't be able to know unless you were there. And as they say, the proof is in the details.
Yeah. So the meeting went on. There was a lot of wrangling about legalities and the state assembly edict and what we were really considering there, etc. And what happened was we got into a long discussion about what the state assembly had done back in 2024 at their state assembly meeting, which basically ruled that they sent a directive, if you will, to the state central committee. And let me explain that a little bit for some of you who don't understand the hierarchy of the party. Okay, the state assembly and convention is the supreme authority over the state party. They are over the central committee. They are over the chair. They are over all of the body. Whatever they say and whatever they portray is the law of the state regarding the party. And so they voted over 90% to instruct the state central committee this year to opt out of the open primaries. Okay? So what should have been just a ceremonial meeting turned into fiasco because these people who were opposed to it not only couldn't argue, cogently what really needed to be done, but what they did is they were rude because they started shouting people down, and this thing went on, and they kept going back and forth. And
well, maybe we should explain how the meeting was sort of founded upon, because I think this would really give a lot of context for people. That when I think, Hugo, could you agree with me or disagree with me, depending on if I'm speaking the truth? Was there ever even an attempt to explain the controversy, to explain why this was so much of a divisive issue? Or did it feel like those who were organizing the meeting just wanted to steamroll their particular desired outcome?
Well, yeah, there's 2 factions in the party. One is what we would consider the grassroots, and the other is what they would be the establishment. That's the body of the party. Now, we have some people in the middle who are confused about both sides. Some of them because they're new to the party, they're new to the process, they didn't know what was going on, so they basically threw their hands up in disgust and sided with the other side, thinking that was the correct move to do. Now, there was not a proposal. There was a petition that I had filed last July, where at the July meeting it began to be heard, and then it got tabled and sent to this September 27th meeting. Okay, so that was on the agenda. Somebody tried to get up and actually try to just eliminate that altogether, but we weren't having that, and it didn't happen. We fought back. So the first item on the agenda was, shall the State Central Committee approve basically the directive of the State Assembly to opt out? And the first thing the chair did is try to implement a 75% threshold for that. Okay, which is totally incorrect because a
And which
motion,
was voted down, it should be said.
it was voted down. I was going to mention that, but I'm saying this is what she tried to do to begin with, is to throw a cog in the wheel and try to slow down the process by saying this will require a 75% vote. And after discussion, it was placed upon her and forced upon her to take a vote on it. The vote was taken and they lost. And so no 75% was required. It was a 50% plus one majority is always that was needed to approve that motion. Okay. So by edict, this motion had to be heard. So when the vote came in and said, yes, we want this to move forward and we want to opt out, what that meant is it put on the table a situation where when a vote was going to be taken, nobody in that central committee could vote no. In other words, they had to vote in the affirmative because they were directed by the state central committee. I'm sorry, the state assembly. All right. So then, with that in place, they basically ran out the clock. They never once announced that we had the room until 1 p.m. Then the authorities at the venue apparently caved and gave us an extra hour. And then Richard Holtorf, Russ Andrews, Britta Horn, and a bunch of other rabble rousers kept making noise, so to speak, and delaying and delaying and delaying. We got to close to 2 o'clock. We finally got the votes in for that motion. We got the votes in for the motion to fire the state attorney hired by Britta Horn, which also passed. And we never got to the part about who would deliver the notice to the Secretary of State. The so-called parliamentarian said, according to the bylaws, it's the chair who would do it. Somebody brought up an amendment to that saying, well, can we have John Temple accompany her to do it? And that was agreeable, but we never got past that. And then by the time we were ready to actually take the opt-out vote, what happened was that the time had run out, and so the meeting
I see a
ended.
sound input.
I see a sound input.
All right.
Now, folks, we wanted to give our credit to Jeremy here because his internet went out, and yet he is still here with us because he cares about Colorado.
Well, yeah.
So we just kind of laid the groundwork on what took place. But I like your input and I like what you've put out there. So I think
and you were also a witness to all these events as well.
Yes, absolutely. We all spent quite a day. Had to drive up there at 6 a.m. to get the petition signed and to get signatures and to get people coordinated.
Yep.
And clearly, Britta did not.
Yep. So tell us about the first step was we got the roll call vote. So tell us about that.
Well, so the roll call vote, we went up there and we collected signatures from fellow members of the Central Committee. The requirements to call a roll call vote, under Robert's rules, it's usually just to stand up and demand division of the House is what you yell. Mm-hmm. And that's supposed to be enough to provoke it. Dave realized that would be abused. And so he implemented a bylaw that allows a roll call vote to be called, but requires 75 signatures of SCC members in order to call that motion, or in order to call that action forward.
And how many did we
collected? We collected 158 signatures.
There you go.
And basically, required them to put the vote on the record. So folks like, I don't know, Jeff Crank pops to mind, or even Lauren Boebert, some of these kind of larger names that people recognize, we can tell you that they voted no.
Yep. Well,
They voted to keep us in an open
the
primary.
opposition did not want their vote on record. Is the bottom line.
They did not.
Perhaps
But
we
they
should
had
set
no
the
choice.
stage. Very true, very true. Perhaps we should set the stage a little bit, because one of the first things that happened at this meeting, and I'm glad that we have Jeremy on to get his reaction to what he saw as well, is when I was unsure of who this person was. It was a lady from the area of Aurora, not, from what I remember, a huge figure in the party. And what she essentially said, and maybe you guys could tell me if I'm wrong or abridging this, but she essentially told us all, you guys kind of suck if you're in deep red districts, and we people in blue districts are the real Republicans, because we're Republicans even though we are surrounded by Democrats and lose our elections so much. That was, I think, essentially the general gist of what our first
Was that
speaker
the lady that was yelling?
Yes.
That was the opening act, as it
That
were.
was the opening act. And that was before we were all called Tyler Robinson and told that we were chaired by Erica Kirk. So, Jeremy, I would love to get your reaction to the opening salvo, if you will, that probably turned a lot of people off of the chairman's position.
I honestly, the word train wreck is almost overused around this type of thing, but there's really not a better word for it or a description. It was loud, it was explosive, and it quickly went off the rails.
Yep.
It was just an absolutely amazing display of tone deaf, narcissistic bloviating that, frankly, you had to be there really to just soak it in. It's hard, like on video, it's still horrifying, but when it was there in person, it was just chef's kiss of utter disaster. And
she got really upset when people were laughing at her because she was just off the rails. I mean, this lady just.
The gal in the pink,
the one that started screaming, yeah.
You'd be surprised how little the one who started screaming does not narrow it down.
Yeah,
that is very true. No, this was honestly at one point, it was amazing. Honestly, there was yelling, screaming, gnashing of teeth, lawsuits served in the middle of the meeting, and I think honestly, so I kind of want to put the chaos into context. And Jeremy, I would love to get your reaction to this. I think the chaos in context here is that people smelled the blood in the water when she gave such a poor performance. They knew this is a person who will not be supported in the future. This is a person who has shown themselves vulnerable on an emotional and rhetorical level. And I think people just kind of had enough.
Well, I think the first step to controlling any kind of large meeting is a modicum of self-control. That's just what I've noticed over the years. And I've been in large churches, I've been in large organizations, I've been in large meetings as a guy in the seats and a guy who's run them. Like, I've been behind the podium with the gavel and had to get things going and rolling. Britta demonstrated a level of incompetence that, I mean, certain of us clearly were like aware of and saw coming, but I think that a large number of the people in that meeting on Saturday were trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. And her choice of subject matter as she opened, and you could hear audible gasps from the audience.
You actually could.
When she compared herself to Erica Kirk, or as I put in one of my videos kind of explaining this, when she horned in on the grief of Charlie Kirk's widow, it is a tone-deaf, unself-aware action that to insert herself in such a crass manner, it was both equal parts horrifying and offensive and sad, all rolled in one. It was
you
just
said
a giant,
it perfectly.
I have a word
ball of
for
negativity.
In and in the Jewish culture, it's called chutzpah.
100%. And honestly,
it's
guys,
it's not a positive thing.
no, it's actually not. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. You guys know, of course, that I grew up with Charlie Kirk. I knew him since I was 16 years old. And so again, being compared to his murderer was really offensive, and I can't really hide that. It was something that, especially when, I've done my best to be cordial to the chairwoman, and we're actually both from Illinois, actually. So, we haven't not gotten along in the past. So I was extremely disappointed, and I would be very open about that. That I would say, I don't know if you meant everybody in the room, but you certainly hurt everybody in the room by that comparison, whether they were on your side or not.
Yeah, it was.
Everybody has
Did not
friends on all
advance
the
the
sides.
discourse. This didn't advance the agenda. This didn't advance anybody. Like, it was just an ugly misstep.
I've been attending such meetings in one capacity or another for the better part of 45 years here in Colorado and in Texas. And I have to say, hands down, I have never attended a meeting that was so poorly managed in my life. I've never seen a level of incompetence from a chair that I saw that day. And I got to tell you that right there, that didn't open up a lot of eyes to people who are new to the process, I don't know what will, because she was all over the place. She kept looking for help from Russ Andrews, from Richard Hortorf, and the guy who was a non-parliamentarian acting as a parliamentarian.
Well, and those guys were asking for help as well. That's what I thought was really special.
Well, I think the thing that really struck me, though, as just somebody that does a lot of video and events and stuff like that, is that not only did Britta not know how to run and chair a meeting and a business meeting of this complexity and legal importance, she didn't know how to manage her own microphone.
Yeah.
And so much of what happened on Saturday could have been alleviated by her simply keeping her mouth in front of the microphone.
Right.
And talking into it and clearly communicating to the body. I actually brought that to her attention because we didn't want this to go in a completely, what's the church expression, fustercluck of a way.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for saying that, actually, because that is a huge piece of disinformation online and in other places right now, that the quote-unquote Dave Williams cronies were the people that made this a chaotic meeting. And I'm here to tell you, whoever you think that is not the cause of the chaos of this meeting. And I think you guys would agree.
Yeah, her parliamentarian was way in so deeply over his head. It was sad. It was frightening. The gentleman, and I won't give his name. He looked like he knew he was in trouble, but he is neither an attorney nor is he a registered parliamentarian.
Exactly.
He's
I think
utterly unqualified.
I think that was totally by design. That's my opinion.
Well, I think what Rita needed was an unqualified opinion to support her positions.
Exactly. Well,
and
I think this was all orchestrated prior to the meeting, and they knew they were going to try to bring. Now,
well, look at the time slot that they had for the meeting. I mean, 2:30. There was no way that meeting was going to end by 2:30.
Well, it could have if they hadn't pontificated and worked on things that didn't matter. We could have had the business taken care of within a couple of hours.
We could have, guys. They could not have.
Yes.
Well, I'd also point out, as we were being removed from the facility and told that there was no more time and that we can't hold even a simple voice vote or anything further, that there was actually quite a bit of time for closing remarks from both Britta Holtorf and the officer and sheriff in charge of the security. They found time for them to address, and we had time for that, but we didn't have time to actually conclude the business of that meeting and properly adjourn.
Yep.
We all wanted to do it again at a different time.
Let's talk about that. According to what I saw, the meeting didn't get adjourned officially. So
Well,
Technically, the meeting is still on.
it puts Britta in a
Oh,
catch
gosh,
22
no.
because if she adjourns the meeting while business has yet to be concluded, then she's in violation of the bylaws.
Mhm.
Or she concluded the business, which means that she's compelled by the business of that meeting to give the render the verdict that the body delivered, which was
Yep.
that we have indeed opted out,
And
Yep.
to deliver that to the Secretary of State.
that we have decided to be in compliance with the greater body above us of the convention and the directive given to us from that. Now, if you want to say that the convention directive is non-binding, okay, you can make that argument. I would say, like, technically or legally or however you want to like argue like the minutia of it, there's error there. I'll grant you that. However, when the Central Committee adopted that motion and that resolution, that becomes a self-imposed restriction.
Exactly.
And if the Central Committee can't tell itself what to do, what's the point? What is it even? What is it even in existence for?
Yep. Exactly.
And so that's a logical conundrum that that Britta apparently has decided is unpleasant, so she'll just ignore and continue charging headlong into whatever it is that she thinks she's heading for.
So actually, I wanted to actually ask Jeremy about this because this is something very concerning to me because I've seen it in the Hispanic, Republican, and conservative communities. That there might very well be a desire to schism the party purposefully because I have heard rumblings of people saying, oh, will that mean that there'll be two separate primaries, one where you can petition on and one that goes through the assembly and caucus? You know, there's some very serious talk, at least in terms of what our enemies want to do to our party, of splitting us into as small of groups as possible. And this split seems a natural first step. What do you think about that possibility? Do you think it's too far of a goal for the kind of people that support the establishment Republicans in name only? Or do you think that's going too far? Do you think they really could split the party?
Well, I think that that the Democrats, as a general basic operating principle, operate on this principle of division. So in that, yes, I think they probably would. But on the other side, these folks are not long-term strategists. That's one of the mistakes that we make because we govern ourselves under logic and reason. We govern ourselves like by intaking information and trying to become more reasonable and more in line with truth. These folks are, by and large, lazy, self-interested, and dumb. And so there's not a lot of consideration to long-term. They see something, they attack and drag it to them and say, mine. And we've basically been like, oh, well, like, I would never reach out and grab something that wasn't clearly mine.
Yeah.
So if they're grabbing it, then they must have authority to do so. Like we give deference to aggression, basically, and that's they are basically aggressive, dumb, and lazy.
Here's something that I've been arguing over the last couple of days on social media, and the side that's grasping at straws about, well, if we close the primary, we're going to disenfranchise this, we're going to disenfranchise that, we're going to piss off the UAs. And I asked one simple question and shut them all up. I said, okay, why weren't we discussing these things back when we didn't have open primaries? Where were you people then? Where were you concerned about the UAs back then, or disenfranchising Republican voters, 80% of which don't vote in primaries? What is this all about, disenfranchisement? Show me a primary where Republicans who are registered have participated at higher than a 20% rate. And I'll tell you that you're a liar, because I've been watching them for the last few cycles just to show how stupid this argument is about, we're going to disenfranchise the 900,000 registered Republicans. I said, really? Okay. When was the last time we had 900,000 registered Republicans vote in a primary? Show me that.
I don't.
No,
It
it
hasn't
doesn't
happened.
happen. In,
No,
in,
and
in, in an
here's the
all
thing.
mail-in ballot state. Okay. So
Where it's an easy thing to vote.
Yeah, we've made it too easy to vote, and people still don't.
Actually, Jeremy, you bring up a fantastic point that I'm surprised hasn't been talked about more. And it's about the name of our party, the Republican Party. They say it's not the Democrat Party. So my understanding, so we're the party that talks about eliminating the direct election of senators so that the states have power in the Senate again. We're the state that talks about starting a constitutional convention to close the loopholes in the voting system. We talk about restricting the voting rights of illegal immigrants who have no right to vote. We talk about not lowering the voting age. So we're not the party of voter enfranchisement in the first place, automatically at least, and not particularly in our own party. In the general election, we are very happy to have every citizen vote because that is the big stage. But we have never, as a party, said that more people voting is automatically a good thing. In fact, we're the party that consistently states that people voting when it's harder to vote makes votes more valuable. So I'm shocked of all these people who have forgotten that.
Well, in many cases, I don't think they forgot it so much as they were never taught it in the first place.
That's true. That's true.
But
we've got some of these factions that are putting out this false information to confuse newcomers to the process. And these newcomers to the process, unfortunately, are not what I would say completely engaged, and they take whatever some of these people say at face value, and then if you confront one of those people, they automatically quote what one of these other people said and say, oh, well, I don't like this one guy that was on there that was saying, well, we had a block party and I talked to some of my neighbors who are
I spread fear. Why didn't you?
Yeah. He was saying he talked to these unaffiliated voters, okay, and he asked them, what would you think if this next primary you didn't get a chance to vote in the primary? And they were aghast. Really? I said, did you also ask them why they unaffiliated or who unaffiliated them? Did somebody put a gun to their head and tell them to unaffiliate? No.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we have to be very clear about where the primary is going in Colorado. The Republican Party will always make sure that people who want to vote in Republican primaries who are Republican will have the chance to do so. And I just wanted to actually give a shout out. And I know most of them voted no, but I spent a lot of the time at that SCC meeting with the elected representatives. And I understood their fear of not being able to continue their public service. And I want to say that our elected representatives do not need more fear-mongering from people who are not elected representatives and who genuinely have no interest in getting those Republicans or any Republicans elected at all. Young, old, black, white, or purple. They have no interest in you winning, because you winning means Republican policies that open up the resources of our state that they control. So I wanted to give a little bit of credit to those officials who did vote yes, but I also do want to give a little deference to those who vote no, because we see how many Republicans have resigned. Do you think that's all just because of Democrat pressure? No, it's Republicans who also pressure our elected representatives to try to control them, and that needs to stop.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I
the odd thing too is these people. I am so disappointed in several of the elected officials that are on that no list, and one of them that stands out like a sore thumb is Lauren Boebert. She has always portrayed herself as a strong patriot and strong conservative Republican, and she sided with the establishment on this. for whatever reason, and I think it's going to cost her.
I think a lot of folks in that room lost a lot of respect when her name came out.
Yep.
As
And that's
voting
very
no.
sad too, because she also kind of piloted herself as a grassroots person, and unfortunately, a lot of people are beginning to see her as the poster child for going from one side to the other, and not in any kind of way that anyone can respect.
Yes, she doesn't stand up for what she says she believes in,
And she has got a lot of pressure, I will admit, but we have to say something very clear. Pressure is no longer an excuse for losing your edge as an elected official, especially in Colorado. I think that's something we need to say.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I absolutely agree.
So where do we go from here? What do you think? What do you think's going to happen?
Oh, I think the fight is going to continue because yesterday on Saturday, what actually happened was that the opt-out won.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it won. It was appealed to the body, and then the body overruled the chair.
Yep.
And then the chair said the motion passes.
Yep.
She said the motion passes 4 times.
Yep.
She said it for amending the agenda and moving the unfinished business to the front and getting things in the proper order over her vigorous desire not to.
Mm-hmm.
Her vigorous and apparent desire. She argued from the podium, which didn't count towards the other side's debate time. But I guess that's at the discretion of the chair.
I believe they call that the bully pulpit.
Yeah, and so like that's just part of the process. That won on a standing vote. The motion to amend the agenda won. We won. Moved the business. Changed up the order. Then we moved to the motion A, which was the adoption of the language of the resolution, which should be read as basically an amendment, as an addendum, and as additional rules to be followed. Like that's what we
clearly says.
That's all we did.
Shall the Central Committee accept the State Assembly? And I don't have all the language in front of me, but basically it said, shall the Central Committee adopt the directive of the State Assembly to opt out of the primary, basically is what it said. Mm-hmm. They tried to change some of the wording to try to make it, sound weirder, but that was basically the vote. Okay. And the vote
it was basically saying that we as the Central Committee are adopting that language, and we are binding ourselves to that.
Right. And once that was done,
this is the important thing here.
Yep.
Britta, as the chair, advanced that motion.
Yep.
She put that motion on the floor. When she did that, she effectively ruled by her actions that is a motion that is in order and acceptable.
Yep.
And if the body chooses to adopt it, then it's a motion. It's a motion, and it is binding, and it is we did that.
And once that was done, here's the key part of that.
Yeah.
Once that motion passed, the body of the Central Committee, had they held a vote, could not vote in the negative on that issue because they had already accepted the directive from the State Assembly to opt out. So by accepting that, it means any vote taken has to be affirmative or not count and or be counted as affirmative.
For anyone who's confused, think about it like a lower house and an upper house. Yet there are way more people at the assembly. In fact, they want to talk about disenfranchising people. The people who made this binding decision on the SCC, there's more of them. By how many factors? Like more than 10 or something?
5 times.
5 times the factor.
Yeah.
So disenfranchising, orale. So basically, you have to think of it like a lower and upper house. The lower house is the one that proposes what they want out of the wider body, and the upper house can edit, they can make things better, they can say this violates the bylaws or something, or our constitution, and then kick it back.
Or the state,
or the state. But what they're not allowed to do... Exactly, but what they're not allowed to do is go, la, 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 we're going to pretend you didn't do that. You're not allowed to do that, and that's what they tried to do. And
you got to figure out how to make it happen.
Exactly, and the thing
it's
is...
a directive.
This was one... Please.
There's the boss. There's the...
Yeah, that's the thing.
And then down underneath
the language is clear.
The committee is the chair and the officers.
The language was read. It says the State Assembly and Convention is the supreme authority, which
and
means
why shouldn't
they
it be?
have over authority over the Central Committee. And some people were saying, "Well, then why do we have a Central Committee if the State Assembly can?"
Why do we have a Senate if we have a House of Representatives?
Exactly.
That's like. So this is what I kind of wanted to conclude this point on, is that we need leadership that can go with the flow. We have leadership that doesn't want to go with the flow of the part of the body they disagree with. That's just being a bad politician.
Well, it's even worse than that, because Britta is now ignoring her own words and her own rulings. So she's not even listening to herself.
Yep.
And that, I think, is what's causing people to really notice the hypocrisy. That's why people are like seeing this and going, that's clearly wrong. Like what she's doing, you don't even have to know Robert's rules. You don't need technical education. You can just see her say the motion passes, and then days later, I don't believe that language is legally binding on me because I decided it was inconvenient.
Yep.
That's not like. As I said in one of my other videos, we elected a chairwoman, not a monarch.
And that goes to the crux of this whole thing. That is grounds for removal of the chair, period.
And we won't need to make a completely BS separate organizational meeting in order to make that happen either. That's sort of key to this whole thing.
Well, it does have to be a vote in the Central Committee, but
it won't be a schism like they did against the former chairman. Is sort of where I'm
this is
implying
grounds,
there.
And
yes,
thank
exactly.
God Cody has
given
filed,
where the numbers are, I don't see it being a terribly uphill climb.
Right. Well, I think if anything, this fiasco added to our side of the aisle because.
Well, look at the votes; it absolutely did.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
well, and then let's not dispense with the motion B was also passed.
Yep.
Telling John Temple that if she refuses or fails to, he's empowered to make that notification to the Secretary of State.
And he has.
Which I believe he has. And then the 3 or option C, motion C. We told her that her this attorney Glenda,
yep,
who's clearly giving her bad advice.
Yep.
And bad advice is always advice you're overpaying for.
Yeah, the State Central Committee has directed her to fire the guy. Now, if she doesn't do that, that's another grounds for removal because she's ignoring the State Central Committee.
Yeah.
So
that's
like I told her when I went up to the mic, I said, "You work for us. We don't work for you," and that's something that has to be pounded in, to the membership because some people think that she's the chairman, so she can do whatever she wants. No,
like Jeremy says, she's not a monarch, and that's the whole point.
Yep. All right. So we're running up against the clock. So we're going to close this out, but we're going to get back to this. We're going to keep on top of the developments, and we'll probably continue to talk some more. If you will send us your video that we can post it up on our
you will find that in the description of this video.
Yep. Because I thought your video was right on point, and
as they always are.
I'd like people to get us a chance to view that, but we are up against the clock. Thank you for coming, Jeremy. We appreciate your input, and we're going to continue to fight the good fight. And I believe strongly that we will prevail on this one. So,
well, it's always a pleasure being here.
All right.
We
Thank
always
you, Jeremy.
appreciate
Talk to you
having
guys
you,
later.
Jeremy.
Take care.
Absolutely.
All right,
As of
folks.
course, the great Jeremy Goodall,
we
master
are
of churches.
up against the clock, so unfortunately we won't be able to get to some of our other topics, but we will get them up for you on our platform. Absolutely. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. God bless you. God bless America.
God bless America.